funniest thing. It was a Teams meeting, right? So Teams
Right.
is a little different than Zoom,
Yes.
but everybody can share in Teams. And for
Right.
some reason, the presenter could not share. And I was like, well, email it to me. And then, of course, I had no problem, but it was so strange. But I personally like Zoom better. I think it's easier to
Yeah.
move around.
Yeah.
But no, it's perfect.
Okay. Well, I have minimized the amount of writing on the slides. And so I have this is so funny. So I have my laptop, and then behind that, I have a bigger laptop that has the notes. So it's like
Nice.
a teleprompter.
Trade secret. Trade secret.
It's great. I've never done this way before, but
hey, you're at least using technology. Usually I have actually printed documents in front of me, right?
Exactly.
That's a great way.
Yeah.
But yes, even you cannot tell that you are offsite at another location. They've got the flag behind you. You are set.
I am actually in City Hall in Elizabethtown. And
very nice.
And the venue is right across the street. So I will probably cut out a few minutes before 1.
That is fine.
Let me ask you, will you be monitoring the chat? And
I sure can.
Questions, if you don't mind to do that. It's for me, it's very distracting to try to keep track of all of that. And
yes,
let me do that because I have a lot of information that I can share, but I want to make sure that it's interactive and people can ask questions if they want to. I think they're going to be very surprised by our audiences. I think.
Agree. Yeah. And I actually, in the introduction, I was just going to, give a high level overview of what you all do with cities. So hopefully that'll be in line. It's straight from your website, but hopefully that'll be in line then with what you're doing. But Alicia Taylor and I are both staff, and we'll get her, Alicia, if you can hear us, we'll get you to monitor chat and hand raises. And then Tad, if you need for me to like drop the klc.org website or your email in chat, we can do that as well.
Okay, that'd be great. Fantastic.
Awesome.
I want to look. I've got just a chance here.
I think we've got a plan.
Yes, I do too.
All right. Good afternoon. I hope everybody has their lunch in front of them. Appreciate you joining us today. I know we'll have some stragglers as we always do. So we'll go ahead and get started, but also this is recording today in case folks want to share the content after the meeting. But I am Debbie Dennison. I'm with the Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board as staff. And monthly, we try to lift up some of our partners' efforts in trying to connect to our workforce. And this month is no exception. We are very happy to have Tad Long with us. He is the Communities Economics Development Manager for the Kentucky League of Cities. And several of you may already be familiar with what the League of Cities provides, but just a little overview, and you can visit their site at klc.org. Just a little overview is that they certainly have state and federal relations. They do research. All this is free to communities. They provide community and economic development, facilitation of meetings, financial services, municipal law, training and member education, insurance services, loss control, and various other things. I won't read through the whole list, but today Tad is going to be sharing with us some of the recent things that they're doing. We're all trying to attract and retain our talent. And the Kentucky League of Cities certainly is helping do that, kind of the tip of the spear, as it were. So Tad, without further ado, appreciate you being here today, and the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you so much, Debbie. It's a pleasure to be with each of you today to share a little bit about our Kentucky cities and what they are doing and what we are trying to assist them in doing related to workforce development. So I hope that by the time we finish this session, that you'll have a better understanding about our city workforce and really the different audiences that we serve. Before I begin, I do want to say a thank you to the city of Elizabethtown. I'm actually at City Hall in Elizabethtown today, and they set this all up for me, and I'm very grateful for that. So just a little bit about KLC, and I'm not going to give you a lot of slides to read. I don't like reading slides or having them read to me either. So I'm going to just tell you little stories about what we're doing and how we do it and why we do it. And hopefully, if you have questions, please feel free to drop it in the chat or send it, raise your hand and you can certainly ask, because I want this to be interactive. So the Kentucky League of Cities, who we are. So we're a non-stock nonprofit membership association. Our members are cities. We have 370 cities in Kentucky that are members of the league, almost all of them. There are a few in of the very, very small cities, particularly in Jefferson County, that are not members, but we essentially serve the cities of Kentucky, and we serve as their united voice. I love our mission, and I hope that wherever you work, that you love the mission of your organization too. I think everybody should believe in what they're working for and what they're trying to accomplish. The very first phrase is my favorite. We serve those who serve. So most of the folks that we're serving have been elected to public office. And then there's all of the staff members and administrators and all the folks that help to implement policies that the mayors and commissioners and council members enact. And so for all of those who are serving the public and trying to make our cities a better place to live, we serve them, and we're glad to do that. And we try to help them be better in what they're doing through community innovation, effective leadership, and quality governance. So who do we serve? It might surprise you. We actually have 4 different workforces that we are constantly serving. The first is obviously the staff at KLC. We are 75 strong. We are a workforce in and of ourselves that are trying to figure out ways to serve our cities better. Our elected officials, our mayors, our city council members, our commissioners, you don't think of them as part of the workforce, but they're doing the heavy lifting and the really difficult work of making decisions in public that is going to set the stage, hopefully, for community and economic development and quality of place and quality of life improvement, and make sure that when you get up in the morning, you turn on your drinking water, it's safe. That when you go to sleep at night, that you can feel safe within your own city. So we serve the elected officials. We serve several other affiliate organizations are part of our organization too, such as city managers and administrators, city clerks, city attorneys, city financial officers, fire, police, EMS and dispatch, planning and zoning, municipal utilities, tourism, city human resource administrators, public works, parks and recreation, and code enforcement officers. And those folks have a place on our board of directors. They're critical to the way our cities function. And so we have a 65-member board of directors that sets policy, and they are very involved in the legislative agenda for our lobbying mission in Frankfort. But each of these subcategories generally have their own associations, but we also provide training for them, education as they request it. And we felt that it was important for them to have a seat at the table on our board. So that is who we serve. Collectively, that's the city's workforce. So there's, the employees at KLC, there are the elected officials of our cities. There are the employees of the cities. That's a part of the workforce also. And then the last piece that you might not think about is the workforce that our cities are trying to attract through economic and community development. So I mentioned that I'm in E-Town today. The reason that I'm here is because we have 17 cities, 7 counties, the economic development professionals, and all those that are involved in the Blue Oval SK Battery Park are meeting today at 1 o'clock to talk about workforce issues. So ECTC will be here. We're talking about infrastructure needs and trying to identify the gaps in services. So again, we're working on workforce issues as well as community and economic development. So that's just a little overview of KLC. I want to talk just for a few minutes about the changing city workforce. So just as in the private sector, there has been a lot of changes since the pandemic. I want to briefly hit on a couple of things that I think are important to note with the city's workforce. So pre-COVID, the biggest issues, there were a lot of issues, but the main ones were the retirement system, CERS. And as many of you know, that fund was severely underfunded. And so it created quite a burden, not just on the state's budget, but a lot on the city budgets. And so we were trying to deal with pension reform. Cities, I remember just before the pandemic hit, I was working in a city that was considering major budget cuts, and they were trying to figure out, what the options were revenue wise. So there were a lot of budget considerations. The retiring workforce thing had just started. There are a lot of people that are maxing out their state retirement, or city retirement, and so they're leaving the workforce. And then there's been an issue that actually we identified back in 2007, in that I don't know if you know this, but every city has to have a certified water plant operator, and so that is not an easy certification to get. It takes 4 years to get the certification. And we recognized that there were some people who were aging out, they were retiring. Well, if you're going to bridge the gap, then there's very few options you have. You can either bring someone in that's new, that's already certified, which is very difficult to do. You can have a succession plan wherein you work it out with your certified water plant operator. You bring on a trainee and essentially pay for two employees to do the same job while the trainee is getting their certification. Or you do a hybrid where you share a water plant operator, and then hopefully by the time the person retires, you've got someone else to fill the position. The point is that people were retiring, and having certified water plant operators was becoming an issue. That started back in the mid 2000s. So we've been working with the Energy and Environment Cabinet quite a bit, trying to find ways to provide training and supplement some of the cost associated with that. So those were going pre-COVID. So COVID, there were a lot of changes. I've always said that I don't think that COVID is what changed the way government works or the workforce. That change was already coming. What COVID did was accelerate it by 1,000 times. And so I know in talking with our cities and just other organizations that we partner with, talking about having Zoom meetings and Teams, any of that kind of stuff. No, we can't do that. You really need to be there in person. No, we can't do remote work. No, it's not possible. I will tell you, at the league, we got the notification on Thursday that we were going to remote work, and on Monday, everybody was set up and we did it. And a lot of cities did that too. So during COVID, we adapted to a lot of things that we thought were not possible. So during COVID, there was mass retirement, and not only in cities, but in industries and the nonprofit world across the board. Many people retired. Remote work, for cities, it was difficult. Who could, who couldn't? How do you arrest someone in a pandemic? Because what if you're exposed to COVID? How do you do an ambulance run and take someone to the hospital when the hospital won't let anyone in? All these protocols had to be rethought and redeveloped on the fly. And that, my friends, that's workforce development on the fly. People's physical health suffered, their mental health suffered, isolation of not being around others. There was a lot of political upheaval. There was a lot of societal instability. There was economic upheaval, global change. there were just a lot of things that happened during the COVID period. Then post-COVID, change is still happening. So you'll see on the right, we helped, I think it was 53 cities we wrote post-COVID recovery and reopening plans for. Things you don't think about. How do you train your public works to make playgrounds safe, or parks and rec? Are you going to wipe down the swings every time somebody gets on it? Are you going to wipe down the merry-go-round? Every time somebody slides down the sliding board, the things you don't really think about that had to be rethought in terms of training the workforce how to be safe in the public space. So that was some of the things that we learned. Difficulty in finding workers, difficulty in finding qualified workers, managing and the changing expectations in the workplace. It was very difficult to run city government without employees physically in the building or on the premises. So you think about the people that work for the city. Most of those folks need to be accessible to the public. When people come in, they want to see someone in person. And so, city workers are like everybody else. I mean, they're people. They'd like the opportunity to work remotely too. And so it's not a very easy situation or problem to solve. And so, cities are dealing with that. Another thing that happened with the during the pandemic was people, I think, had time to spend with their families. They reevaluated what their priorities were. There was a new mindset, this thing called a Cabela lifestyle, where people wanted to be out and in nature. The workforce just changed. That it just did. And I think something else that came along with that, just from an HR standpoint, was empathy. That this became a quality that people began to look for, because the people that we serve are dealing with a lot of different kinds of issues. So that was something too. And then, of course, we had actually 3 or 4 natural disasters. We had the tornadoes, we had the flooding, we had the ice storm, and then we had the wind, which was the biggest and most extensive natural disaster in Kentucky since the ice storm of 2003, I believe it was. We don't really think about the windstorm, but that there were more claims and more problems with electric grids and all that than any of the other disasters. But anyway, all of this has an impact on workforce development. And amidst all of this, I know there were 6,000 jobs open, new jobs in Bowling Green and Warren County. We announced 5,000 new jobs in Glendale, in Brandenburg, a new plant, Guthrie, and I could name all over the state. The need for workers increased. How do we prepare a workforce for that? And that's part of what we're doing here today, is discussing that. So, there's something else I want you to consider too. The body politic. We cannot ignore the fact that cities are led by elected officials. And I want you to understand, as in terms of workforce, what this is about. We have 2,600 elected officials, over 2,600. Most of them, a lot of them, are retired from other jobs, or they're just citizens that are interested in running for public office. They don't have a lot of experience in running meetings and managing organizations like cities. In 2023, we had 150 new mayors out of 417 cities. We had over 800 new council members and commissioners out of the 2,600. So that's 950 new officials out of the 2,600. On average, every 2 years, an election, the turnover is 35 to 40%. So you think about that. Every 2 years, we get a new workforce in the political realm. And so part of our job is to help train them how to do their job. It's also important to know that 80% of Kentucky cities have a population of less than 2,000, and that the average mayor's salary is $6,165 per year, and that the average council member and commissioner salary in Kentucky is $1,800 per year. And you think of the responsibility that they have. And our responsibility is to prepare them to serve, to prepare them to do the things that they need to do it lawfully, legally, and in the right manner. That is our workforce training for elected officials. So what are some of the things that we do? We have a City Officials Academy that's generally held in January on the election years, after the election. We do a lot of legal training. We have a summer summit coming up in a couple of weeks in Lexington. That'll be for code enforcement, alcohol beverage control, and community and economic development. And we educate and train our elected officials and those who work, serve in cities, trying to give them the tools that they need to do their jobs better. We have also held a homelessness and housing summit. We will be doing that again this year. Housing and homelessness are two different things. Affordable housing and housing affordability are two different things. We have a lot of issues and challenges in both housing affordability and in taking care of our homeless population. We started a program. This was an initiative by our board, the Mayor to Mayor program, in which experienced mayors take on a newly elected mayor and mentor them over the course of a year, just to help them get their feet on the ground and to understand all the nuances of governance. We held our first Women in City Government Summit in 2022. We've continued with a women's series online, and we'll be doing another summit later this year, I believe is correct. We just started a new program called Dine Like a Diplomat. This is education and training for our city officials primarily, but we branched out into other arenas. For example, chambers and tourism, those folks. We have a staff member who is certified in diplomacy and protocol. She worked for the Pentagon and also for the White House, and so she brought this to the table, and we love it. So for our communities that are recruiting, companies from other places, other cultures, other portions of the country, even, or if you're having an official delegation in, how do you put your best foot forward? And this has been a very popular addition that we've added to our toolkit. A diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative, which is very important to us and to our cities. And then we also have a hiring solutions program where we are helping cities evaluate and learn about soft skill training and how to incorporate that into their hiring processes. And so that's been a very, that one has taken off as well. So those are some of the things that we're doing in terms of trying to serve those that need our assistance. And this may sound more like, just services we provide, but I guarantee you that what we're actually doing is we're training all the workforces that we serve. That's what we're doing. I want to talk just for a few minutes about some things that might be in your realm. I know a lot of you are not involved with government, city governments particularly, but I want to talk for a few minutes about the implications of the global challenges that we face. So there was a lot of talk, and there still is a lot of talk of the Great Migration. when the pandemic started, and people looking for more rural places, getting out of the larger cities. And that is happening. It has happened. People have come to Kentucky. I've gotten calls from California, Nevada, Washington, New York, people wanting to know about Kentucky, small Kentucky cities and that sort of thing. I've heard other people that are involved with it a lot more than I am say the same thing. And they've moved here. Kentucky, we need a lot of workers. And I tell people this, you know, there's two ways to grow the workforce. We either need to have more babies or we need people to move here. That's the only two ways. And so, you know, we've got to solve this problem of you know, do we have enough people to work? So we'll figure it out. We've got a lot of smart people working on that. Well, now the pendulum always swings. I always say, just give it enough time, pendulum swing from one trend and one fad to the other. So if great migration was the thing, we're now seeing the pendulum swing back a little bit as large corporations call workers back into the office and make it mandatory. And so there's somewhat of a worker rebellion going on with that. And so we'll see who wins. But that's probably going to be unpleasant. But I will say this, I do think that there are a lot of people that found their inner zen as a result of the pandemic. And I know personally of a lot of people that, you know, had two spouses working and now one, and they figured out a way to make it work. So there has been a mindset change in terms of how people think about work. Online shopping, I don't have to tell you anything about online shopping. It's been devastating. It's convenient. I love it. But in terms of city small businesses and that sort of thing, it's been difficult. Shopping malls, it's the same way. It's devastated them as well. But we adapt. That's what we do. But I want to share with you some of the implications of this, because I want you to know it goes beyond just, you know, we'll be losing that workforce. That's the one thing. In these small businesses, if they go out of business, then we've lost that. We also will have more vacant office space. And I've talked with folks in several different industries, for example, architects, engineers, and those kinds of services, that discovered that 5-story building that they don't need that anymore. They really need, you know, 3-4 rooms. Everybody else can work remotely. People can come in and plot out their plans and that sort of stuff. They can have meetings, and they don't need all that space anymore. Well, what does that mean? That means vacant office space. That means cities don't collect taxes, either on the property, on the payroll taxes, on the net profits tax, business licensing tax. You know, it's changed all that. So we're having to re-examine how we're going to deal with this. And you say, well, you know, is that a workforce issue? Yes, it absolutely is. Because economic prosperity and growth in terms of small businesses is usually dependent on other small businesses and competition. And you find that especially in smaller towns where you have business clusters and they complement one another. And if they go out of business, then you've lost your workforce. And so that has a ripple effect throughout the municipal economy. So yeah, it's an issue, but you know, again, we'll deal with it. I want to talk for just a few minutes about partnerships. Partnerships are really important to us. As Debbie and Alishar and others, we talked through kind of, you know, this presentation. You know, I've seen a lot of partnership attempts over the years, and some organizations try to find partners because of the public appearance of it. And so, you know, I have witnessed organizations try to fit square pegs into round holes. Every partnership that we have matters, and there is an outcome that's equal to both organizations, and we highly value that. And so what I have on here, I don't have all the partnerships that we have. I mean, I could probably, you know, make 18 PowerPoint presentations just on that. But I do want to highlight some of the things that we're doing in terms of building, the next generation of city employee and the next generation of people that are going to be taking my spot at KLC when I retire. So they're all important, but the ones I want to talk about are our college and university, our education partnerships first. We have a number of the universities and colleges and the independent colleges too, and the community technical college that we've had long-standing relationships with. And I'll start with KCTCS. 16 colleges, 65 campuses across the state. They have adapted as well as any educational organization I know of in terms of fulfilling workforce development needs. And it's amazing, how quickly they can adapt and develop curriculum that will fulfill the workforce needs, the training needs of workers as they come into the state. Some of our affiliate organizations, for example, especially fire departments, rely on the community and technical college system for training. And so they're very important partners and have been for a long time at various times. Today we'll have a discussion. ECTC is involved with workforce training for the anticipated workers that will be coming here, and the other community colleges are doing the same thing. We have a very important relationship, one of the first relationships that we had when we started up the community and economic development division in member services, and that is with Murray State University. Murray State University is one of only 3 universities in the United States that offers a master's degree in economic development. So they are churning out students, brilliant students that understand the importance of economic development and the tools that it takes to implement an economic development strategy. And they have been incredible partners. They have an entrepreneurs college. They have they do a lot of. They help us to craft the training and all that sort of thing about the role of an elected official in economic and community development, and that is a really critical piece. It's important that they have an understanding of economic development, but we have a lane that we have to stay into, and that is that our mayors and council members and commissioners are, in most cases, not the economic development expert. What they need to be doing is standing on the stage, setting the table and helping recruit, saying the right things when potential clients come into our cities. And on the flip side, the economic development folks need to be on the platform when we're cutting ribbons for small businesses downtown. So this is all a part of the education and development process for our elected officials. And I'm hopeful that it's the same thing for our economic development professionals across the state too. They're also providing just education and training on how to attract small businesses. They also provide student internships, and I've had 2 of the best interns I've ever had over the last year and a half from Murray State University. We have another partner, Eastern Kentucky University and Midway University are offering tuition discounts for city employees and their families. So, in that way, this is a way that we can help them make education more affordable. So we're very appreciative of them stepping up to the plate and offering that opportunity for our city officials and our city employees. The University of Kentucky Martin School for Policy, and they have done an incredible job over the years training master's students to do public administration. So we've had several as interns. We've also seen several of those go on to become city managers, city planners, run for public office, just incredible partners that we've had. As a matter of fact, the league's offices were started at the University of Kentucky. So they've been a part of our life for a long time. Then I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Kentucky Association for Economic Development. So when we decided to get into the city's role as in economic development, Murray State reached out to us first, and then our first initiative was to contact KAED. They are the Association of Economic Development Professionals. They have a certification program. They have lots and lots of resources. And so we formalized an agreement with them, and every city has a complimentary membership to KAED. So they can access behind the firewall, so to speak, in terms of gathering information about their community profile and what properties are available for economic development and how do you go about it, and all the training resources that KAED has are available now to our city officials, and it's a terrific partnership and very substantive. So the three-legged stool for us is KAED, Murray State, ourselves, and then the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development. Jeff Knoll has been a breath of fresh air sweeping in as the cabinet secretary, and we really enjoy working with him. And we're all on this march, so to speak, together to try to elevate the knowledge, the understanding of our elected officials as we try to build better communities. And a part of that is, the role of the city is making a great place to live, placemaking. So we do a lot of training around, what does a great city look like? Why? I ask the question all the time, and sometimes I get surprised looks. I can work and live anywhere. Why would I want to live in your city? And there's lots of people like me out there. And so, whether you're a city of 250, like a Bonnieville, or, you're a city of 200, 300,000, Lexington, Louisville, Owensboro, Bowling Green, what would attract people like me to your city? And so it takes work, and it takes education to do that. And so we try to provide those resources too. So recently we have formalized a partnership with the Kentucky Main Street program. That is a downtown revitalization program. They have lots of training. We have professional downtown managers in several of our cities in Kentucky. That was my initial background in public service. I was a Main Street manager for 8.5 years in my hometown in Lancaster, Kentucky, and then flipped around and was on the Heritage Council for 12 years, which oversaw the Main Street program. So, it's in my blood, and I love that program. And I think the more that we can provide professional training for those who are trying to attract businesses downtown, I think the better off that we'll be. So that's a very important and key partnership for us. We also, I don't want to fail to mention that we have, make sure that I don't lose my thought here. Yeah, the partnerships that we have with the Kentucky Energy and Environment Cabinet are substantive. I've already mentioned the water plant operator issue that we're dealing with, brownfield site remediation, educating our officials on how to clean up these polluted sites and redevelop them, whether it's infill or it's, something else. They are a key partner for us as well. And then we initiated last year a Local Leaders Academy. So this is a year-long program that teaches our city officials how to lead, how to be effective leaders. And so you've seen leadership programs, I'm sure, all across the state and in your own locality. I have a very strong belief about leadership. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter where it is. It doesn't matter the scope of it, whether it's a local leadership training, whether it's a regional leadership program or the statewide program, it is important that when people go through the leadership programs, and that is workforce development, it's education and training and all that, to remember that the only people that got to experience what you experienced were the people that were there with you. And so when you go home and you try to do something in your community, we also need to be training them how to implement. And I'll pound on that one till the last breath. If all we do is learn and we don't do anything with the learning, then we have failed as educators and trainers, in my opinion. I spend a lot of time planning. I work with cities in strategic planning, comprehensive land use planning, work planning, project implementation. And, you know, I've always said, I don't want my tombstone to say, oh, Tad had a plan. I want to say Tad did something. And so I want to challenge everyone that's working in workforce, everyone that's working in leadership, everyone's working in these programs that are trying to help move our state forward, move our cities forward, make them better places, that we don't forget that nothing happens if we don't do it. And so we need to be the ones that are doing. I am going to draw down now onto the partnership opportunities, because, you know, we've got several folks on here, and I don't know the different backgrounds or where you're from or what you do or any of that. You may just want to know, how can I, I've got services I could provide, or I've got resources I can provide, or y'all have got resources that we would like to have, and we would love to hear from you. So we do have partnership opportunities. We have a corporate partner program called the Cornerstone Partners, and we have a number of those that provide cities, you know, services. And these are generally, KLC doesn't endorse any company. However, we do have a pretty thorough vetting process, and we trust these partners as they do and provide their services for cities. We have an affiliate partners program. We have, you know, an annual conference in September. We have a summer summit that's coming in June. There are opportunities for exhibiting. Maybe that's something that appeals to you. My partner and my supervisor, Jerry McCullough, is on this call as well. Her information is there. She would be glad to talk with you about how you can access KLC's membership, and, you know, how we can work together as we try to make our state a better place to work and live. I think that we're getting a lot of stuff right. Not just KLC, but I think in the workforce arena. So for all of you that are working in workforce development, I do want to thank you. I want to compliment you. There's been a lot of changes over my lifetime in terms of what's provided, what opportunities are provided to people who want to work, for people who want to improve their workforce. I'm thankful to work at an organization like KLC that values its employees and wants them to have opportunities to better and improve themselves as we deliver services to our cities. And I'm very proud of what we do for our member cities and trying to help our elected officials be better educated, be better informed, be better prepared as they lead our communities into the future. So, gee whiz, Debbie, that was a lot of talking. So what I hope to get across to you is this: workforce development is critical. And KLC, part of our mission is workforce development, but maybe not in the ways that you would think about it. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to share the information with you. And I'm going to pause now. If you have questions or want to chat or whatever you want to do, I'm here for about another 8 or 10 minutes. And then I've got to scoot across the street. All right.
And while folks are pulling their comments or thoughts or questions together, I just want to thank you for the information. I was jotting down notes and want to make sure after this call today that I make sure you guys are plugged into some of the local workforce areas. I saw Myra Wilson is on here. She's the WIB director down in the Cumberlands area. And I saw some other folks from West Kentucky on here. So It is critical to have every single partner in the city, in the county, in the region, talking to each other, right?
I
And truly
agree.
being intentional with these partnerships really is key to making this whole thing work. We all get little smatterings of money from federal, state, local arenas, and we've just got to know what the other's doing, or we're going to work right past each other.
Yeah, it's really interesting in doing strategic planning for cities. We will start out with a lot of what we call listening sessions, and so it could be a public meeting, but we also like to get people in a room, let's say 15 people, and they're from related industries or related sectors. It's amazing how many people don't talk to each other. And somebody will say, well, I didn't know y'all were doing that. Well, I didn't know you were doing that. Why didn't we know? Well, and so that begins a conversation. So yes, if you're on here and we need to connect, we're open to that. We have enough issues with silos that people put up we don't have any control over. We've got some that we've got control over, we can tear down. And so we would love to talk with you.
Well, I'm putting a bug in your ear right now. We're going to be taking a road show on state plan presentations and planning over the next 3-4 months. And Tad, you're going to get an invite for all 10 of them. So you and Jerry, you just look through them and see which cities you want to go to. And yes, we would welcome your participation.
Yay, Jerry, road trip.
Sounds great. I'm ready.
Hi, Jerry.
Hi. Good to see you, Debbie.
Good to see you as well. And again, appreciate everybody. Got a comment in the chat from Karen McFadden. Thanks for taking down the silos. It is key. Continual communication, that Kevin Bacon, 6 degrees of separation. It is so true. If you start talking and they say 35 minutes, if somebody is talking for 35 minutes and you all are sharing things, you will typically find at least one person in common that you know. So continue the conversations. Tad, we know you have to run to a meeting, but anybody on the call have any final comments or, this is kind of a different take on this partner spotlight that we do monthly. They are very much a partner, but I don't know that we've been looking at it from the city up, from the outreach piece that can be provided. Tad, you mentioned partnering with some of your tourism folks within each community. And that's key because the WIOA or WIOA, I've heard it both ways,
Sure.
Those funds do not allow for marketing. And so part of attracting and pulling people in from other states, other communities is being able to market. So I don't know if you all heard, but I heard reach out to KLC, they've got a plan.
Well, it's amazing what you can learn when you listen to somebody, and I don't know. I think that sometimes silos are just the natural thing. We're trying to protect our turf. And I remember, I'm from a small town and people used to talk about somebody having power. I'm like, what power are you talking about? This is a town of 3,000. What are you talking about? Why don't we just work together and get something done? And then, we can all take the credit for it. And so, yeah, that works out sometimes, but maybe it's human nature, Debbie, but we're trying to really make sure that we engage. And that is one thing about strategic planning. So I get to see a lot of sides to communities when we bring these folks together and sit down and just talk about what they're doing, and what they would like to do. And let's see if we can find a solution for some problem that they've had for a while. And, you can't do it all the time. It doesn't work all the time. I'm not going to sit here and pie in the sky, but a lot of times you can work something out if you sit down and have a serious conversation about it. So, yeah, issue sometimes.
Absolutely. No, agree with all that. I don't mean to monopolize the conversation. So any final comments before we let Tad get on his way? Well, appreciate the conversation. And there are some folks that I mentioned put their information in the chat, and we'll provide you with their contact information post meeting. And then you all can begin that conversation as well. And likewise, at the state level, anytime you know of things that are coming along, reach out to us. We can reach out to our local counterparts
Right.
and just add to the levels of conversations that you're having. But appreciate you all.
Listen, look forward to it, Debbie. Appreciate you all so much and for making this happen. And wish you the best. We're here. We really are here to serve and help, and that's what we want to do. So let us know how we can help.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Everybody
Bye.
have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.